Hello and welcome to yet another side-splitting episode of the Audiophile Man. And what do I have for you this time around? Well, I have a vinyl cleaner, a manual vinyl cleaner from Knosti, the same people who brought you the Disco-Antistat Mk.Ii. This is the Mk.II Plus, the Disco-Antistat Mk.II Plus. So what's the difference between the Mk.II and the Mk.II Plus? Well, down below I will list all those plus features, and I'll be reviewing every single one in this video. Now, the original Disco-Antistat Mk.I manual vinyl cleaning machine is a stone-cold 24-carat classic. In my opinion, the very best low-cost manual vinyl record cleaner you can buy, period. Built to a price it might be, but all of the important design factors are here. Using the correct liquids and secondary tools, the Disco-Antistat is a true giant killer of a cleaning system. Question: can the new iteration, the improved Mk.II Plus, follow in its footsteps? Will the new Mk.II Plus be the new king of the hill? That's what we're here to find out. Now, be warned, in this feature I am not going to tell you how to use the basic Disco-Antistat. I have already done this in the video on this channel, link above. So I will not be repeating myself here. I am also not going to tell you how to get the best from the Disco-Antistat. Again, I've already done that. I have my own in-depth 5,000 word plus cleaning guide that's supported by 2 videos, backed by years of development, interviews and research. It's available for free on my website, is based on the Disco-Antistat Mk.I, and it tells you how to get the very best from this product. That guide can be found in the description below this video. So, if we're not going to do any of that, just what are we doing here? What is this video about? This video is about differences. This review is basically a differences video. It tells you how the Mk.I has been changed, upgraded, or otherwise, and why. Any issues or problems I might see, and how they might be rectified or not. I also offer my advice on if you should buy a Mk.II Plus at all, or whether you should just stick to the Mk.I. So, to coin a phrase, what's in the box? Well, underneath the instruction sheet, you will notice the bath. Pretty large piece of plastic. The clamp to attach to your Mk.Ii record sits top left. You'll also find a water filter box, plus accessories to filter out the nasty mucky bits from the bath water, and a bottle of cleaning fluid. Tucked inside the old plastic bath here is a box of accessories, but we'll get to those later. Before we get to the hardware itself, I want to talk about the included cleaning solution offered in a tough plastic bottle which contains pre-diluted liquid. That is, the liquid in this bottle is ready to go. You pour it into the bath of the Mk.II Plus, and you can carry on cleaning your vinyl straight away. Now, when I reviewed the Mk.I Disco-Antistat many years ago now, I frowned upon the included liquid at that time. Why is that? Well, the liquid at that time left a thick, gloopy deposit, a residue in the grooves, and now that was collected by the stylus tip during play, which then needed removing by a stylus cleaner. Trouble was, this stuff never seemed to end. There seemed to be tons of the stuff. It just kept on coming, and my poor old stylus tip at that time was being clogged and cleaned, well, seemingly every 5 minutes. So I binned the featured Knosti liquid, and I used my own preparation. Have done ever since. Well, that liquid has now been modified. I know, for example, the alcohol that was in this liquid has now been removed. But what else may have been tweaked? And was that included Knosti alcohol? Was it reacting possibly with other bottled ingredients that might have been generating all of that gloop? Hence, will the removal of the alcohol stop the gloopy goings on? So I decided to test the liquid first and foremost. What I did not do was grab the nearest Mk.Ii record to clean to see if the gloop reappeared. After all, any possible deposit on the stylus tip Might be from the liquid, then again it might just be from the dirty corners of the record's own grooves. I had to be sure that if I did see gloopy stuff from this liquid, it was actually from the liquid and nothing else. So what I did first was to clean not one, but two test records in my Disco-Antistat Mk.Ii ultrasonic cleaner. Then I gave those same records a rinse in the Disco-Antistat. Then I played those clean records on my turntable, after which I examined the stylus tip to see if any deposit had occurred. Once I was happy that no natural deposit was occurring, then and only then did I clean those records in the newly tweaked Disco-Antistat liquid. And the result? Better. Not perfect. Improved, you might say. I did see some deposits collecting on the stylus tip as a result of cleaning with the Knosti cleaning liquid. Not as much as I saw with the original liquid recipe, but it is there. Now, if you have a zero tolerance for such things, and I do have a zero tolerance, then keep using your own cleaning alternative. Now, the improvements to the liquid have done nothing to change my own mind, and I'll still be using my own system. Even so, if you don't want to faff around with third-party liquids and recipes and all of that witchcraft, and just want to get on with it, then sure, the Knosti liquid is now usable. You may find yourself cleaning your stylus now and again, and at least the situation is somewhat bearable. But look, this product is really not about the liquid, it's all about the hardware. So let's look into that. So the bath. First up, well, I like the lighter grey colour of the Mk.Ii Plus. Why is that? Well, because now you have a better chance of seeing what's going on in the bath, how mucky it might be in there, and if the bath water needs changing, if there are particularly large pieces of grime floating around. So maybe the bath water should be changed rather sooner than you would normally do, or maybe the brushes are dirty and need a clean, and so on. You should be able to see all of that shenanigans in the bath now. Earlier with the Mk.I, well, that Mk.I bath was pitch black, and it was tough to see what was happening in there. So yes, in terms of sheer colour, I prefer the Mk.Ii Plus. Next, on the inside of the bath wall is a max level watermark, which is immensely helpful to prevent overfilling the bath and thus risk soaking the clamp that's protecting your record's label. Now, if I was being greedy, I would have liked to have seen a minimum level, and in addition to that, maybe a sort of normal or average level. The minimum level indicating how much the Mk.Ii Plus requires to operate in the first place, and the normal level indicating how much water most people will need to do a typical cleaning job. But a max and min label would be my priority. As it stands though, I'm very happy to see this max level. Next up is the secret sauce of the Disco-Antistat, the brushes. These brushes do all the good work and add one thing that all of the competition does not: abrasion. Critical in cleaning and oft ignored by most other cleaning systems out there, except for ultrasonics, abrasion is absolutely important for vinyl cleaning. Hence you have a pair of goat hair brushes, the substance of choice here. Now I asked Knosti why they ended up with goat hair, and they said, and I quote, "Over the course of time we have tested various bristle materials, and the goat hair bristles have proven themselves time and time again due to their good properties and excellent cleaning results, coming out on first place in the tests. It would perhaps be easier to work with synthetic fibres, as goat hair is a natural product and always has slight variations. But we did not want to choose the easiest way, but the most efficient with the best result." And I completely agree with that. The great thing about the Mk.Ii Plus, the great improvement, is that you can now remove those brushes one at a time for cleaning. And that's a brilliant improvement. Now, I did notice 2 complaints on the internet regarding these brushes, the removable brushes. Firstly, some people couldn't actually move them. They had trouble removing the removable brushes from the bath itself. They even had problems when using a pair of pliers. For these commentators, the brushes were stuck solid. Maybe it's the plus version of this Mark II. Maybe there's been some redesign in the housing, because I found their removal and reinstallation super easy. Very smooth indeed. Perfect, actually. So moving the brushes on my Mark II Plus, not a problem. The next complaint I saw was that some users found rusting on the brush area itself. Now, I asked Knosti about this, and it said that the brush housing is made from stainless steel. So, any rust is not coming from there. Knosti did suggest that the source of the rust spots found in this area by some users could be a result of the manufacturing process, where dust and other contaminants have accumulated around the brush area. My advice then, well, before you use the Mark II Plus bath, remove the brushes, give them a good clean inside the bath and outside while you're about it. And that should solve the case of the rusty bath, which sounds very Sherlock Holmes, I have to say. Underneath the bath, Knosti has given you 2 sets of feet, one for each end of the bath chassis. You have to construct the feet, but that again is super easy. Just take the 2 included plastic blocks, remove the sticky black feet from their own material backing, add those feet to the blocks, push the blocks underneath the bath chassis, and you're done. Having the feet in place is a great addition, because the original Disco-Antistat, well, it had no feet and it slid all over the desk surface, especially if you had removed the drying rack, which you probably would have if you're going to use the thing. The Mark II Plus feet are designed to be fit in place once that drying rack has been removed, and they work very well indeed. Before we get to the clamp, I must mention the 2 new shaft locks. The locks are to be found in that packet of accessories I mentioned earlier. Consisting of 2 shaped pieces of plastic, they are affixed to the bath chassis with a grub screw each. Then they swing around over the clamp to stop it popping out of the axle grooves during cleaning. The clamp itself now features a handle, so you can turn the clamp with that instead of having to grasp and rotate the record itself. This will be useful for those people who didn't want to get their fingers wet. It avoids some records which can be a little sharp around the outer edge when moving with bare hands, and it also helps to keep the record free of hand-borne oils. In terms of the clamp itself and its inherent construction, the principal difference between the original Mark I clamp and the Mark II Plus is a rubber band that circles inside the clamp to protect the label from the bath water. That is, the internally fitted rubber band acts as a seal against water intrusion. It was this clamp that I found to be problematic. First issue, when I clamped a record ready for cleaning, I placed the vinyl record in between the outer clam shells, where the vinyl is the meat in the sandwich, as it were. Then I rotated the clamshells via the built-in screw thread to tighten the clamp, making it waterproof and protecting the labels. I then placed the vinyl in the bath, secured the clamp axles with the shaft locks, rotated the record with the built-in crank handle to clean the vinyl itself, carefully lifted the vinyl out of the bath, drip-dried for a few moments, and then attempted to remove the clamp. It wouldn't move. It was stuck. The clamp was stuck. No matter how much pressure I added to the clamp, it would not rotate in order for me to remove the thing. What I had to do in the end was grip the outer rim of the clamp with my fingertips, pull just a little bit, and twist at the same time. And that did the job. Now, I could remove the clamp using that technique every single time, but it hurts my fingertips, folks. It was cumbersome, and it could even result in an accident by dropping the vinyl accidentally as you tried to get to grips. So no, that had to change. So I grabbed some petroleum jelly, spread the substance over the rubber ring to somewhat lessen the friction across the rubber area, removed as much of that jelly as possible with a cloth, and hoped that a microfilm of the stuff would stay in place. So I tried again, repeating the process, and it worked. The jelly lowered the friction. Trouble was, the clamp was no longer waterproof. The jelly let a little bit of water into the outer clamp area. So I cleaned the entire clamp area and the rubber band with some isopropyl alcohol as a kind of reset, and I had a little think. Silicone spray was a secondary option, but I wondered if that might have the same water leaking result. Another option was a gentle roughing up of the rubber ring with fine sandpaper. I thought that might reduce the friction just a tad. Now, I was about to try that, but before I did, I noticed a more important problem, and that kind of put the water leakage thing on the back burner. I noted fitting the clamp to a record with a red Columbia label. I noted that with the clamp firmly in place, I could still see parts of the label peeking out of the clamp. That is, parts of the label itself lay outside of the rubber ring of the clamp. So, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? No matter how good the ring was to prevent water ingress, no matter what modifications I gave to this rubber ring, none of that would matter, because the outer part of my Columbia label was going to get wet anyway. So this was a basic design problem, therefore. How to solve that? Well, I wondered if I might possibly be able to remove the actual rubber ring. So I tried to lever it out with a flat-headed screwdriver. And yes, the ring actually emerged. And you can see it here. I did that with both clamp halves. So then, 2 rings emerged. Now I showed all of these images to Knosti, and it now also recommends that you remove those rubber rings from your Mk.Ii Plus clamp, at least while Knosti continues its own internal investigation. And if I hear any conclusions about that investigation, I'll be sure to pass them on. So I put the rings to one side. What was left was a bare clamp. Basically the same inner clamp design then as featured on the Mk.I Disco-Antistat. So I clamped that same red Columbia record with my newly modified clamp, rings now removed, and I placed that clamped record back in the Mk.II Plus bath, rotated the record to clean, removed it, let it drip for a little bit, lifted the record from the bath, and by the way, I could now easily remove the clamp. I could easily rotate and remove the clamp from the record. So that was a plus. That solved the case. All was well. The label actually remained dry. Basically, what had happened was the clamp from the Mk.II Plus was now performing exactly like a Mk.I. In fact, it was now no different from a Mk.I clamp. There is one maybe less important issue with the clamp, and it's an issue with or without those rubber rings. And it's this: when you're using the crank handle to turn the record in the Mk.II Plus bath, that's pretty effective in a clockwise direction. If I then want to reverse the direction, as is my want, and go anti-clockwise, I have to stop the vinyl, physically grasp the vinyl itself, give it a little push into anti-clockwise mode, which will then move the bristles in the bath in the opposite direction, a bit like changing gear, I suppose. Then crank the handle anti-clockwise. This, I'm afraid, can be a problem because on occasion it can unscrew the clamp, letting water in. So instead, I found I had to run through a clockwise cycle of cleaning, then lift out the vinyl out of the bath, flip it over, and do more clockwise cleaning, but the vinyl would be now cleaned in the opposite direction, if you're still with me and if I haven't confused the life out of you. It's a bit of a palaver, but it's the only way to clean the grooves in both directions with the crank handle. And that, my friends, that is basically the review of the Knosti Disco-Antistat vinyl record cleaner, the Mk.II Plus. Everything was going just swimmingly until we got to the clamp, wasn't it? How should I rate this cleaner? How should I rate the Mk.II Plus? Should I even recommend it? Well, let's see. To repeat, I love the Mk.I Disco-Antistat to bits. The Mk.II Plus Disco-Antistat, well, it improves upon the Mk.I in almost every way. There are substantial and genuine enhancements right across the board here. Well, almost right across. There is a stumble before you get to the end point, and it's the clamp. That darn clamp. Firstly, although the rubber ring is an effective water barrier, it does prevent the removal of the clamp after cleaning. More serious than that though, the rubber ring is positioned too close to the spindle area of the label. It should be moved further outwards at the very circumference of the clamp. Yes, there are many differently sized record labels out there, but to say that this clamp works with some record labels and not others, well, that will put off many a prospective buyer, I am sure. A vinyl cleaner should either work or not, and this one has issues. But as we've seen, those issues disappear when the rubber sealing rings are removed. And don't forget, you will need to remove the rubber rings on both halves of the clamp. Once done, the Disco-Antistat Mk.Ii clamp then effectively turns back into an older Mk.I style clamp, while the rest of the Mk.II Plus design now becomes a true upgrade and an effective replacement for the whole Mk.I chassis. So yes, if you buy the Disco-Antistat Mk.II Plus vinyl record cleaner, you will need to do a quick mod on the clamp to get it to perform at its peak. But once you've done that, and it takes a few seconds, you will have a brilliant and effective cleaner at your disposal. As a final upgrade for the Mk.I, well, the Disco-Antistat Mk.II Plus is a cracking enhancement, the perfect upgrade. I'll certainly be upgrading my own Mk.I immediately. Pros and cons. In the good section, I liked the colour of the chassis. Such a simple thing, but so very useful. Next, the maximum water level. Well, that could prevent all kinds of little watery accidents. Next, the feet. It keeps the chassis solidly on the desk. Finally, the removable brushes. Wonderful for cleaning. And in the bad section, well, there is that clamp, of course, but as we've seen, a quick mod will solve the problems, which means I am more than happy to give the Knosti Disco-Antistat, the Mk.II Plus vinyl cleaner, an award, a groovy, an 8 out of 10. Hang on a second, let me pause just here. Some of you right now, I am sure, will be shouting at your device saying things like, but this is out of the box a faulty product. The rubber bands fitted to the clamps, they are an issue. And yes, if my sole aim here was to punish Knosti, then sure, I'd be giving this product a 6 out of 10 maybe, something like that. But then prospective buyers would approach this review, they would check out the rating first, not bother to check out the rest of the review, and not touch the Mk.II Plus with a barge pole. When, in fact, with a non-destructible 20-second mod, well, that's how long it took me, you've got a pretty special product on your hands. My aim then was not to punish the prospective buyer, but be assured, I have informed Knosti that this award-winning rating of theirs arrives with a modding caveat. It's not an out-of-the-box rating. And on that note, I would like to say congratulations to Knosti. And that, folks, is the end of that. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this video. And before you go, could you do me a favor? Just below here, can you click on the like and subscribe buttons, please? Just helps the old channel, if you don't mind. Also, further down, I'll put a link to Knosti and all of its wonderful products. And further down there are my links to my Patreon page. There is a whole heap of exclusive hi-fi news, etc. videos over there, plus lots of buyer's guides and features and text features and other ramblings. There is also a link to my website, plus my Facebook group, and you're welcome to join that one if you fancy. I'll be back when? Well, there is no music alerts this weekend because this review took so long to sort out. So I'll be back next week with another review, this time next week basically, with another review, and I hope to have your company then. Till then, folks, bye for now.